Hi, this is Ian Higginbottom here from Reflecting Power. Part of my work, I deliver executive PEP training for the PEP organisation. And one of the tools I use in a lot of my training in the exec PEP, it's not in the standard PEP, but it is in the exec PEP, is this set of conversations I call conversation for action, or the commitment cycle. Now, this isn't my original work. This really derives from the work of Fernando Flores and others in the ontological coaching area. But many of my clients find this really helpful. So I thought I'd just step through it. This is the diagram you may well have been sent or you've downloaded. And we'll see a cycle. And this is really starting a conversation between a customer and a supplier. And at the beginning, the customer wants something done, or they want something, they're going to make a request, and we're going through a cycle until the point where the customer is satisfied, or potentially not satisfied. The people I've learned this from speak of this as not as a model or as a framework. In other words, it's not a simplification. What this is a set of conversations that are observed to happen when the customer and the supplier are both satisfied at the end of an interaction. So basically it means that if you're not getting what you asked for on time and to standard and are fully satisfied, one of the conversations in this cycle, or one or more of the conversations in this cycle, are missing. So let's just step through them. There's a 2-day program behind all of this, so we can't go in vast depths. However, we can go in enough to be useful and help you diagnose and address more issues of not getting work on time and to standard. In other words, how do you move to a world of no surprises? Okay, here's the empty cycle, conversations for action, the commitment cycle. And this is a conversation then, or a set of conversations between a customer and a supplier. The first phase is the preparation stage. So this is really the customer, before they even make a request, or if it's a case of an offer, the supplier, before they make an offer, to think about what is it that they want. What conditions will have you satisfied at the end when somebody delivers? And the minimum sort of thing to be thinking about is just what is the issue you want dealt with? What do you need dealt with? What's missing? What are the desired outcomes? Whose support are you going to need? What resources are you going to need? You may add more than that. If you're familiar with PEP, you might be thinking about clarity of end result. At the end of a preparation stage, you're ready to make a request. This also works, as I said, if the supplier is making an offer at this point, but in which case the supplier is doing the preparation. There's a lot of work we could think about of requests. What is a well-formed request? The who, what, when, why, sometimes how of a request. That has the request be one that if someone says yes to, then you are likely to get what you want. So one area to look, if you're not getting what you want, is, was your request well formed? Stage 2 is negotiation. So before we've come to an agreement. And this is where co-invention is possible, as a conversation between the customer and the supplier. So when a supplier hears the request, they might better use different responses. In some organizations, the only possible response is yes. But have a think about this. If yes is the only possible response to a request you make, can you rely on that yes? So other responses that you might think about are counter offers. That's a real negotiation. I can't do X by Tuesday, but I think I could get you a draft done by Monday and a final document by Thursday. Would that work? Commit to commit later here is a little bit of jargon, really, but what that means is you make a commitment to make a commitment as to whether you will do or not do the request at a future date. This really means that you can go and check whether you have the capacity, the knowledge, the resources, whatever it might mean, that you need to check before you commit to either delivering on the request or commit to not delivering on the request, which can be just as useful for the person asking. Ensure you have a commitment. So if you're the customer, you're listening for whether you have a commitment at the end of this process. That means someone might say yes to you, or they might not, but what do you listen or interpret them to be saying? Sometimes we can listen or hear a yes, even if one wasn't said. Once we've co-invented, or in a trivial case, listened to, we make a promise, a commitment to deliver on the request, or to deliver on the conditions of satisfaction as they've been expressed. A promise might be stated, it's in words, sometimes it's listened even when it isn't stated. I don't know if you've ever held expectations of someone to deliver something, even though you never really asked them. Well, you could say you're listening a promise, even if the person didn't ever make one. So once there's a commitment in place, the next phase is the performance phase, the doing phase. And in here, the key thing is staying on the same page. If something changes for you as the person asking, do you communicate it? If you're the supplier, the person who's promised to deliver something, and you identify any risk or lack of capacity or any other reason why you may not deliver on time and to standard, do you communicate it? Other valid areas or conversations in here could be a customer withdrawing the request, the thing's no longer needed, or the supplier renegotiating a commitment. Generally, what a customer wants to know in here is the project on track? Is it off track, but you've got a way back? You know what you're doing to fix the problem. It's off track and you need help, or it's seriously off track. There's a breakdown and we need to renegotiate. At the end of this period, the supplier is going to declare completion. It's complete. Here it is. Or some other way of letting the customer know the job's done. I don't know if you ever had work done where someone doesn't actually tell you, where's that report I asked you for last week? Oh, I left it on your desk. Oh, I didn't realize. So it can be very useful to be clear that the work is completed. Final phase is evaluation. The making of the judgment is, does what I received, or has what I've received, met my conditions of satisfaction? Is it what I asked for? If I'm dissatisfied and I think the person did deliver what I asked for, I need to be really careful here because they may have fulfilled on their agreement, but I've moved on and changed what I wanted, and it can be very disempowering for someone to hand something over and be told it's not up to what they wanted, but that's not because they didn't deliver, it's because that's changed. An evaluation phase can end or be part of either it ends with a declaration of satisfaction or dissatisfaction, but in here could be a conversation for appreciation. If you got what you want, it's thanks very much, or some other acknowledgement. If you're clear that your supplier broke the promise, they said they would do something and they didn't do it, then what may be appropriate is a conversation for accountability. But before we move to accountability, there's a world of conversation to debrief and figure out what went wrong. Because there's at least 8 places things could go wrong. You may not have prepared. Your conditions of satisfaction may not have been what you really wanted because you hadn't thought it through. Your request may not have been a complete request. Something was missing. The negotiation stage may not have happened, such that you really weren't on the same page at the beginning. You had asked for one thing, the supplier thought you asked for something else, so they delivered what they believed you wanted, but it wasn't what you wanted. So it could break down in the negotiation. Maybe there wasn't really a promise. Sometimes people make slippery promises. They sound like they're making a promise, but they didn't really. I'll try. I'll do my best. I'll see what I can do for you. These kind of things. Next, there may have been something missing in the conversation for progress. Did you stay on the same page all the way through? Did you have an appropriately set up set of conversations for progress? If as the customer you didn't manage this, then it may not be such a surprise in the end that you didn't get what you wanted. Did your supplier declare completion? We've already talked about that. And then the evaluation. Now, the evaluation here that might be relevant is the previous time you asked this person for something. I've worked with a lot of branch heads in the public service who get a piece of work from one of their directors. They're in a hurry, so they edit it and move it on up the line, but they don't take the time to share their dissatisfaction. So the next time they make a request, it goes around and they're dissatisfied again. And then again, and maybe then they start to delegate work to a different person. But the reason, or a potential reason for their dissatisfaction, is that they haven't communicated, they haven't had that conversation for accountability the last time around the cycle. And then finally, there's the declaration of satisfaction. Because if you actually hadn't told the person last time you were satisfied, well, that may not be helping them know what you want this time or be satisfied themselves. So I hope that was useful. These are my contact details. As I said, this is a fundamental part of the training or the tools I use in my training, whether it's leadership development work, one-to-one executive coaching, and I also embed this with a lot of the executive coaching I do for PEP, whether that's the Exec PEP for Principals program, or whether it's the usual Exec PEP with APS Band 1 and Band 2. Thank you so much for watching to this point. Go well with your delegations, and I wish you a world of no surprises where you stay on the same page with your upline and for those who are delivering to you.